JFCS's RJeneration, which began as the 79ers a decade ago, established a community who learn, celebrate, and give back together.
We had informal social programs, we had Jewish education, we had community involvement and giving back and so on. Yet always a thread that ran through it was matchmaking. One day we decided we were going to stage our own version of the dating game.
Before the game started, Katya and I were actually chatting with each other at this event, and she gets pulled away by one of the organizers.
At the last minute, so here we are, it's about to start. We needed 3 bachelorettes, we only had 2.
The organizer, Lenny, basically begged me to do it because one of the bachelorettes had pulled out. And I came up to Gleb and sort of went on a subtle rant about how, you know, this is gonna be like some awful bachelor who's fat and ugly and horrible and boring and, you know, all sorts of really kind things came out of my mouth. And then at some point, it totally dawned on me that it's him.
And she's like, if it's you, don't pick me, you understand?
I'm serious. I don't like dating, I don't like dates.
The truth was that Gleb and Katya had an eye on each other from prior to the dating game, but neither was really ready to go there.
Do not pick me under any circumstances. I don't want to be picked.
And so Gleb, in the end, it was obvious to everyone who was there that there's chemistry there and he really should pick her.
Come to the end of the game, I, like any right-minded female, am expecting him to pick me, which is totally logical, and I think all the women in the room would agree with me.
And I'm like, I would like to pick her, but she was very emphatic about not getting picked, so I don't. And you hear from the audience,
and you hear from my little heart, yeah. Wait, what do you mean you didn't pick me? I mean, I know I told you not to pick me, but seriously.
So Katya comes out, and Katya's like, I can't believe you didn't pick me.
After that, he got my number from a friend, and a few months later we actually ended up going out, and we've been together now for 8 years, married for almost 5.
When I started going to the 79ers events, the main purpose was obviously to find some friends and somebody who had something in common. The ulterior motive was, of course, to find someone to either date or marry or be with longer term. And the organization, both the 79ers and just JFCS events in general, were good ground for that.
For me, because I am in the military, for those first 2 years that we've been friends, I already knew where I was going. Not very good places out there. So I told everybody that I can't really seriously date at that time. But just happens that Irene baked the cake. It was a Russian version of an apple cake. And somebody took a picture of me eating that cake. And a couple of months later, I think it was my 30th birthday party.
29.
Or 29. I invited a lot of 79ers, and Irene was obviously one of them. She actually brought a version of this cake for me as a birthday gift. And on the cake, she found that picture, and she blew it up. And there I was eating that cake, and I thought that was one of the most amazing things somebody ever did for me. I met my future bride. So it worked out great. No complaints.
The truth of the matter is that there are many, many people who found their basheret.
I was definitely looking to meet another Russian-speaking Jewish person. And Natalie, I think you were as well?
I was as well, yes. Correct.
I lucked out. I met my wife in the process. That's really kind of defined my life from then on forward, and my family and my trajectory.
I like that me and her share the same values of giving back and helping others. Growing up in Ukraine, we didn't have much. In fact, we had almost nothing, no connection to Judaism whatsoever, only a negative connection.
I'm from Latvia, and so to the blonde people that I grew up with, it was very, very obvious I was Jewish. Anti-Semitism was not something I kind of experienced from my parents. It was a very visceral, sort of regular part of my life.
depending on our age and how long we'd spent in the Soviet Union. We all were stigmatized as Jews and discriminated as Jews, and we understood that. We understood that we weren't Russians in the Soviet Union, we were Jews. We came here and suddenly everyone identified us as Russian by virtue of our language.
We were not American because we would bring borscht for lunch to school, but we weren't Russian, and we weren't Jewish the way that the circles of American Jews were, and so we kind of didn't have a particular group that we kind of fit into, and so we were in a little bit of no man's land.
With American Jews, I didn't know the songs, I didn't know the prayers, and I would go to these services and awkwardly just stand there and be like, I have absolutely no idea what's happening. I've never felt less Jewish.
I was facing many questions of my own personal identity, knowing at a deep kind of gut level of that I am a Jew, but not participating or doing anything about that.
And then in my early 20s, people started asking me about my identity, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm Jewish, but I still didn't know what that meant.
We had moved to the US, we had immigrated through, and there were other people like us, but we didn't necessarily know each other, we certainly didn't talk about it, we didn't know what questions to ask each other or who to talk to about that experience.
It dawned on me that this wasn't just my problem and this wasn't just my issue or my journey, but that bringing this group of people into a community would be quite powerful. I personally at the time was looking for avenues of engagement with the Jewish community and was pointed to some leadership program by some organization called JFCS, and literally at that time had no idea who that was or what it was, but JFCS and in particular Anita Friedman were instrumental. Anita heard me out, leaned in close, put her hands on my shoulders, looked me right in the eye and said, "We've been waiting for you for 25 years.
For the first meeting, we had 20 people show up, and it was very clear we had the beginnings of something truly magical. We organized our own Rosh Hashanah dinner. For many of them, there would have been no Rosh Hashanah dinner had we not organized something for this group. And we took part in assembly and delivery of gift bags for the elderly for Rosh Hashanah.
And they were so excited and they were so grateful, and I think that just having young people around them, I think, is really important.
You guys have an opportunity to hear firsthand from folks that are out there in various different careers. One of the things we've done so far is we organized a career night where we had young professionals who were then talking about their experiences to an audience of Emigre teens.
Especially because Lenny had a background in tech, I would say that the RJen group was a startup, and JFCS was the venture capital investor in it. And just like in any startup, often a venture capitalist would be able to connect you to a lot of the business needs that the company needs to succeed. In this case, JFCS had all the connections to all of the Jewish religious and cultural things that the RJen 79ers group needed to succeed, and it became a very successful company, so to speak.
This is almost unprecedented.
They brought in a lot of outside folks to share information or answer questions.
Classes with Rabbi Peretz have been one of my favorite parts of RJen. It feels sort of like getting together with friends, but with another level onto it. You're learning about history, we're learning about Judaism and connecting.
Something got out of balance, and with your help, it's back in balance.
Part of it is the fact that you're learning with other Russian Jews, and part of it is, of course, the job that Rabbi Peretz has done. When you meet him and you learn with him, you feel like you've known him for 20 years, even though you maybe met him 10 minutes earlier.
I am really, really happy to see you.
I was able to learn a lot more about the religion, everything that I hope my parents and my grandparents wanted me to explore in this country, I was able to learn.
From the 79ers, I started saying I'm Jewish a lot more, which sounds ridiculous now because I'm so Jewish, but there's just a certain comfort there. I never had that before.
They had a parent panel to talk about immigration. They organized a trip to Russia and for us to meet people there, including people to talk about what it was like staying there, what it was like being Jewish still there, why people didn't immigrate. But the biggest resource that the 79ers provided was just having each other and the space and the structure and the framework to share experiences with that community. That was just an amazing resource that didn't exist anywhere else.
We came here as immigrants many, many years ago. And now that we're together in the community, we want to give back to the people that assisted us.
People wanted to give back.
As our involvement progressed, we learned about different opportunities through not just 79ers, but also JFCS and all the different programs that they offer, volunteering, youth outreach, going out to the elderly homes for holidays, socializing with our babushki and diedushki.
You know, you sit down with some of these older retirees and you realize that there's such an impact that these programs have in their lives, because this is a Jewish connection that they really want to have and they weren't necessarily able to have earlier in their life. And you could see the joy that they get from going to these events and having younger people spend time with them and share stories. So that was a really touching moment for me. And you could see how your involvement actually helps real people.
What I found about being Jewish is that there's a real sense of community, and that regardless of whether the times are good or times are tough, the community stands together and either helps one another or celebrates the successes and triumphs of life.
Being on the Emigre Gala Committee is a way to help promote awareness about the organization and all the work that JFCS does to help those in need, not just the elderly, but the children, the families that may have other questions, scholarships for students, all the different activities that go on here. And the Emigre Gala is a way to get people to know about them and learn about them and help out in the community.
I think it's really important for our generation to volunteer because it gives us a connection to the community, not just the Russian Jewish community, but also the San Francisco community. It allows us to help and to see the fruits of that labor as we're doing it. It's really great also because we get to meet one another and we get to create bonds with one another.
We were helped by a very generous, welcoming Jewish community. And now that we're older, it's sort of a time to give back because it's our responsibility as adults.
The holidays, the traditions were almost lost. Luckily, we came to this wonderful country, and through JFCS, 79ers, and other organizations, we were able to explore the values that I'm sure our grandparents, our parents wanted us to have.
I wish for our generation and for all of us to continue to go from strength to strength and to continue to have as much impact as we can on our own community and in the Jewish world at large.